Hey, Leon. Yeah, doing good, man. Doing good. I've been having a very, very chill weekend compared to the frantic week that I had. So it's good. I'm enjoying it. Still doing like bits and bobs, but I think I played like the majority of yesterday. I was just playing like Cyberpunk. Just driving around, not even doing missions, just fucking brainlessly driving around the city. Let me switch it up here. There we go. There we go. So yeah, it's been good. I've been looking forward to this weekend because every end of the month is super hectic, right? So you couldn't join. That's all right. I don't know. I'll be busy the rest of the day because we're gonna do like a bit of a cleaning today. But maybe in the evening I'll play a little bit more. You've been struggling with sculpting for the second day. Are you trying to sculpt the details of the chair? The chair legs, I think I saw something like that. Let me just gather the questions in the meantime. Then I'll also do like an update of what's gonna happen in like the coming week and all that stuff too. Sculpting the ornament. I have real problems with not getting it to look blobby. Yeah. Usually what I do is I'll start out with like a solid base mesh from like Maya in your case probably. And then only use ZBrush to add like little details in there, like damaged edges or something like that. Because I know how you feel. Like it, especially in the beginning with ZBrush, it's really tricky to get some, how would you say, like clean line work. Like not make it look blobby. Is my bot gonna make an announcement? Is my bot just sleeping today? Let's have a look. Got a couple of good questions in today. We're gonna start out with your question, Leon, after I gather everything here. Polygon. Tropical moisture. And then trick show. And I think we also have like an anonymous question too. Just gonna plop them all in. And let's make sure that we don't miss any of the anonymous questions. Hey, Polygon. Hey, Peter. How are we both doing? If I make the base in Blender, might as well model the whole thing there. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, that's what I think I would do too. It's just like model it all in Blender and then just do like a sculpting detail pass on top of it to just get like some little chips and some little surface deformations in there. I think honestly that's all you need. You doing good, Polygon? Working on some little texturing? Doing anything in particular or just playing around with stuff? Oh man, what a busy a week it has been. We got so much like cool stuff happening, like the team challenges came out so good. I'm always surprised by the end results of them. I'm not gonna talk too much about those today because we want to get together with all the organization, and we're gonna give like we're gonna replace next AMA session to do like sort of a feedback and like critique session of all the pieces that came out. So I think that would be really interesting. Instead of just looking at my face for once. Yeah, they came out so good. Came out so good. And now it's just about like gathering the feedback and like preparing the website posting so that we can make it all look nice and clean. And then maybe gather some of the videos that people are making for them. Do like a nice compilation video. That would be awesome. Hey Oki, how are you doing? Okay, let's question here. But yeah. What else has been happening within Beyondextent? Like we got the announcement of the live sessions that are going to be happening soon. The first one is in 10 days. It's on the 12th of May with Karen Stanley. It's going to be awesome. I'm really excited for those. And then we have the compilation update that dropped yesterday, so people that support us can get like all the new tips and tricks that I've been doing over the last couple of weeks. Yeah, what else? Like behind the scenes, like we're gonna be doing like a discussion about the feedback that we're gonna get for all the team challenges. Like people are submitting their feedback as we speak, so lots of stuff happening. It's gonna be awesome. Oh yeah, those live sessions, let's not forget about them. Grab the new compilation, so much good content. Oh, thanks Paul, that's great to hear. I appreciate it. The live sessions sound great. Yeah, I'm excited. There is still some stuff that I need to personally look into, like how and what the best format is, but I'll figure that out. Hold on, let me just... I think the bot just broke. So let me just make like a quick announcement here. Link. Hey, there we go. That's done too. Back to the template. So yeah, lots of interesting stuff happening. And yeah, I mean, we got what else is on the menu? Like next week, we're gonna, on the 7th, I think we're gonna have like our first solo challenge announcement by Ioana. So I'm excited about that too. She's gonna be, she did a great job on the first one. And I might even take part in it myself. Just do like some tests and do some stuff. I don't want to spoil it, but I'm excited about it. So yeah, it's going good. Doing good, looking through the second UV workflow stuff. Oh, Peter, is that the blog post stuff that I just released? Because yeah, the second UV workflow is so powerful. You can do so much with it. Oh, and Paul, you're texturing a bus shelter for the Decagon challenge. Oh, is that what was that? Is that like the Decagon Layard challenge? Is that still going? Post-apocalyptic. Yeah. Oh, okay, cool. When is the end date for that? Oh, July. Okay. Yeah, that's a pretty long one. I mean, it's good that it gives you enough time. Because yeah, if we look at our team challenges, like people went fucking crazy in the last week. Skipping on a little bit of sleep here and there, so we don't want to be doing that again. Okay, cool. Let's dive into some questions, shall we? If you're new to the stream, like I'm gonna go through the community questions first, and then I'm going through like the chat questions. So feel free to just put anything in the chat if you have any questions. Community questions first. The first one is from Leon. How often are new hires let go during probation? In your experience, is it more often because of the skill or the personality? That is a really good question, Leon. Honestly, I was looking at that question yesterday, and I don't think I can recollect like a single person that got fired during their probation. Because I feel almost that a probation is just like a just in case if they lied about their portfolio, or if they can't really do the stuff that they told you. But I feel that the interview process is quite elaborate, so that you don't really get the chance to like lie or like sneak your way through. So I personally haven't heard about like probation, like people doing their probation getting fired. It might be different in like different companies when, I don't know, like bad stuff happens, like the economy gets a hit or something like that, and they have to let go people. Those people are probably the first ones to go, right? But personally, I don't think I've ever heard about the companies that I worked in letting people go during probation. But so if I imagine it happening, it would, I mean, it can be both, right? If you look at the skill or the personality, usually I would say personality is more likely to happen, because skills can be taught, right? Like you can grow, like it's easier to grow in the skills than it is to change your personality. So if you're like a really bad team player, you just can't, you're just like always on people's cases, and just like always making people angry or something like that, like extreme cases, right? I would say that is way more likely than the actual skill level, because as a junior, normally the industry should assume that you have a lot to learn still, and that the studio is taking you on to give you the opportunity to learn and to grow. So yeah, I would say personality is probably the big one there. Hey Ben, how's it going? Hope you're having a nice Sunday. Yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting that I never had an experience like that myself. Probably good. It means that I work with professionals, right? Okay, next question from Polygon. Thanks so much for the question, first of all. I wonder if you could explore emissive lighting within Unreal Engine 4. I know you can create emissive materials and use that as a source of illumination, but are there any pros and cons to doing this over just, say, like using a light? Is it okay to use emissive materials along with lights? Say a lamp post with an emissive material on glass which covers the bulb and the rather than the actual light to provide illumination. Jesus Christ. Um, it just depends on use case. As I told you yesterday, I don't really have that much experience with emissive lighting specifically, because all the scenes that I do, they are usually set outside, and I try to rely on baking just the least amount of times as possible. I wanna have everything running as dynamic as possible, because it just speeds up iteration time. But yeah, there's probably use cases where you can use it along with lights. The big one with lights is that it's easier to see the end result of it. So you have better control about like the cone, especially if you look at point lights or like spotlights, where you can choose the directionality of it, right? And choose how far it will go. With an emissive material, like if you wanted to go out further, you have to bump up the emissive of that material, which can look quite unrealistic, right? If you have to bump it up to like such a degree that is almost white, if we say like a blue emissive. Usually it depends on the style as well. If you have a light post, I would go for a light, because an emissive which covers the bulb. Oh, okay, I misunderstood. So like an emissive material on the bulb of the light. Yeah. It's actually a good question when it comes to performance, right? Because I don't really know the performance impact between the two. Because with lights, you have lights overlapping, and that like dramatically increases how expensive they are and how long it takes to bake them too. So I wonder if there's like the same sort of impact with emissive lighting. But yeah, I'll go as far as to say that it just depends on the use case, right? There might be use cases where, let's think about one. I'm trying to think. So let's say that you have, I'm thinking about a scene in The Division 2 where, I don't know the mission, but they had this mission, like you go into a building and they have like these illuminated cubes going down a hallway. That is a situation that you can't really fix with lights, because especially now in the era of ray tracing, like if you put like a fake light in there to sort of fill the atmosphere, it's gonna look weird, it's gonna look unrealistic. So in that case, you almost can't use, well, you just can't use lights in that case, and just have to use like emissive materials. The same for like traditional lights, right? If you look at the opposite, you probably don't wanna use like emissive materials and just use lights. But yeah. Emissives instead of actual lights can be nice for small electronics and other details. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, yeah, a very good point. Yeah, I'm just thinking, because if it's about small electronic lights, you don't need emissive lighting, almost. Like just the emissive is gonna do all the work. Well, I don't know. It might be cool. This would actually be a good question for an actual lighting artist. Not an environment artist who's fumbling his way through like thinking about lighting. Yeah, that's an interesting question. I would love to speak to like an Unreal Engine, like a lighting artist that has more experience in that. Would be cool. Yeah, Paul, thanks for the question. Appreciate it. Because, yeah, I was wondering about performance too, like you were wondering about it, but I have no clue, honestly. I have no idea about that. Let me switch up the questions a little bit. I want to go with the anonymous question first, because this is such an interesting one. Let me read it first. So, do you think with AAA companies continuously growing, they and their projects are becoming too big to actually succeed and keep having the same level of success they used to have in the past? I mean, this is a question that I'm asking myself too, because like a couple of years ago, when I was first entering the industry, there were some studies. I can't remember where the studies came from, but they did like a study, like the ideal team size to have a balance between creativity and also production speed, right? So that you could have like bigger projects, but it would still be like a creative driven process. And that number was around 70 people. But if we look at 70 people, we're probably talking about double A, maybe, because I would assume that most double A teams are probably way bigger now. I don't know if that number has changed in the meantime, but yeah, I do feel that there's an element of just companies becoming too big, and there's almost like a sense, again, this is my personal opinion, right? I feel like there's almost a sense that there's sometimes too many cooks in the kitchen. So that, yeah, I mean, there's just too many layers that you have to go through to have like a real impact, or like there's so much feedback that you don't really want to bother at some point, because you know that is going to be like a discussion for like a couple of hours, and then at the end you're just like so exhausted by it. I'm just naming, what is it, like most of this is not from personal opinion, like personal experience, but it's just from, yeah, like hearing stories, like talking to people, and then just, yeah, I mean, just being in the industry for a while, right? I mean, not that long, but definitely seen some stuff. So, yeah. Lots of outsourcing as well, keeping the core dev team tight. Yeah, but you have to invest like a lot of resources in outsourcing too. Because as an artist working with outsourcing, like there's a lot of feedback, there's a lot of going back and forth. Obviously, it saves on the manpower that you have to have within your own team, right? But it still is like an expenditure in time, if that makes sense. But that is a good point though. Like it's definitely keeping like the core dev team ties smaller. Yeah, I wonder, because what I always wonder is seeing the creative process of creating games myself. There is so much happening at like every stage of the process, like ideas being shared, like things being tested out, things being reworked, things being scrapped, things being updated, things being added all the time. And yeah, sometimes I wonder if it's, how should I say it, like yeah, there's just too much stuff going around. Like it's not focused enough. Or like the people, like the art directors, again, talking really generally, right? Like I'm talking about the entire industry when I say this. Maybe there's just too much stuff thrown at them, and like they they get so much cool stuff that they don't really know what to add, what to implement. Yeah. Man, this is such a tricky question to answer for me. I need to be really careful with this one. But in general, I think that there is definitely an element of, especially, I don't think the projects are getting too big because there's so many elements to like procedural generation and like those kind of tools that we can really use to speed up the process. But I think we're kind of in this weird moment where the tools are still being sort of built and refined, but we're already trying to do more with the tools than is actually possible at this point. For example, if we look at, I don't know, I was playing Cyberpunk yesterday, right? It's a good case study within that, where that city is so big and it's so expansive, and they must have had some procedural tools to help with that. But it's also because it's such a new thing, right? Like most procedural tools, if you really think about it, are built for open worlds that are mostly on a 2D spectrum. But with Night City, you have to take the vertical axis into account as well. So we're talking about overhangs, we're talking about like rooftops and all that stuff as well, right? And it's not as simple, let's say, as Spider-Man, right? If you just try to rebuild New York, those buildings are relatively simple. Like they're perfect for the algorithms that we have now, or like the procedural generation tools that we have now. Because there's a lot of reuse between the buildings. There's not that much like, what is it, like ornamental structures. There's not that many overhangs. There's like all the buildings like are on a grid as well, which helps a lot, right? And if you then compare that to like Night City from Cyberpunk, I mean, that's like a completely different beast that we're talking about. So I don't know in how far they use procedural tools. They must have done for probably the road system with like cars driving on splines and all that stuff. I'm just assuming, right? I don't know how they actually did it. But imagine making like a procedural system that works for that. And then having to dress it all up, right? Like, it's such a crazy thing to do as well. I think the real thing, and I mentioned this yesterday to a couple of people too, I'd rather have a game like Cyberpunk that tries to innovate and like really push the limits and like tries to do something new, and to have something that we've already seen and it's just like updated graphics and like updated scale, right? Oh, it's just bigger. It's like, well, bigger doesn't always mean better. I mean, that conversation is kind of done to death anyway. But yeah, it also depends, right? Like if you look at the last sentence of this question is, are these projects and studios becoming too big to actually succeed? Like, it depends on your measure of success. Because, I mean, these games are like massively successful. If you look at how much Cyberpunk sold, for example, like didn't they have like 12 million pre-orders or something? Like even if they had, like they had a recent call about it where they showed the financial impact of the refunds that they had to do was like peanuts compared to what they made from that game. So that is the biggest measure of success, right? That we have been using up until this point. Maybe we need a different measure of success, but yeah, I mean, we're still talking about like public companies accountable to shareholders and all that stuff too, right? So they want to see growth. I don't want to get into the weeds of that, but yeah, there's that whole aspect to it too. I love the idea of a tight-knit, small, like relatively small team though. Also, games should be at least a bit smaller in scope generally, in my opinion. Ain't nobody got time for those gigantic open worlds games anymore. I think people do. It's just we need to get away from like the formulaic games, where if you have like an open world game that starts to feel like a checklist, we're doing something wrong. Like it needs to feel like a world that you can explore, and there should be like stuff to do, which there should be unique stuff to do. I think that is one of the bigger things, right? Because there is always stuff to do in an open world game, no matter which one you look at, but most of it is just recycled. You see that in every game, right? Like they try to do their best to not make it look recycled, but it kind of is. So yeah, I mean, I think in that respect, we're just starting to really think about like really interesting systems about open world games. I know that this sounds crazy, but I feel like the tech is catching up. We're sort of getting to a point where procedural storytelling is coming into play. Where if you look at what's the game? Watch Dogs Legion. That is like a good first step into that direction, right? Like what if you could have something like that within Cyberpunk? Imagine what a rich world that could be. In most open world games, I miss the emptiness that builds anticipation for the next, hopefully unique thing. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Because I've been talking to people about like Cyberpunk over the last couple of days, and a lot of people love that game, so there is something that they're doing right and that other open world games aren't doing. Because I really miss that game. Like I love going back at it and just driving around. Even, I mean, I'm biased, right? I'm an environment artist, and it lines up with what I want to... Not with what I want to do, but like with a world that's really interesting and fresh. Instead of something that is kind of set in history, like you kind of know stuff about it already. Like Cyberpunk was something completely new. I mean, it definitely is set in some tropes with like, obviously the Cyberpunk genre, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's the biggest thing that I had from that game. It's just, it was something that wasn't really done before yet. And I was listening to some people talking about like fast travel in general, which I always think is like a really interesting discussion. Because sometimes I'm like, for example, I don't think I've fast traveled in Cyberpunk at all, because I just like driving through that game. I've played like 100 hours. There's like a lot of stuff that I haven't explored yet. So I try to take like different routes to like destinations if I have destinations. And it's just fun to explore that, where, I don't know, in like most cases, yeah, you kind of have, like you said, this emptiness that you have to get through. And it's just like, oh my god, I just want to skip this emptiness part. Yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, we'll see. I'm really curious where we go into the future. Like, I think we have some really good case studies for, like I said, like Watch Dogs Legion for like procedural narrative. Cyberpunk for like just the city and the world setting. I think we can get like a lot of interesting lessons from that, even though like it has its flaws, right? I really hope that the industry looks at that and is like, okay, but there's something there. Like maybe we can use that as like a building block. Yeah. We'll have to see. I'm curious to where the future is going to go, especially from open world games, because I'm still like a big fan of them. Let's have a look here. Next question from Tropical Moisture. What kind of environments are the most enjoyable to work on for you, and why? Tropical Moisture. This is a really good question. I would honestly have an issue saying like what kind of environment, because I jump in between so many things. Like the thing that I love is just where I'm in control, where I can build stuff that I want to build. I know that this sounds super vague, but I'm currently doing like a medieval scene. The next one is going to be like futuristic sci-fi. So I can't really draw a line between the two. And like my previous scene that I finished was like a post-apocalyptic like current day factory scene. So I don't feel like there's like a set thematic, but it's just where I can build something that's uniquely myself, and I can like iterate and like throw stuff in there that I want to do. Those are probably like the most interesting kinds of environment to work on. I don't really have a set thematic or like theme that I want to go into. At least not now. Maybe over time that will change, but at this point I just want to jump in between stuff and like do the stuff that I enjoy working on. And then we have the last question from Edric Joe. How long should you wait before reapplying for a position that is still open, taking into account that you improved your portfolio since then? Yeah, that's the biggest thing, right? If you have like a new piece that is big enough to make it worthwhile to just reapply for your portfolio, with your portfolio, right? Just do that. Because usually it also depends on the scale of it, right? Because the reason why I say like a big enough portfolio piece is, let's say you apply and then you make like a wooden barrel, put that on your portfolio and then reapply again and just say like, hey, look at my wooden barrel. Maybe that's not enough, right? You need to be able to like really come up with something like, oh shit, okay, that's pretty cool, and like makes an impression. So this could be like a relatively simple prop too. Just depends on how much time you put into it and like how detailed you go with it, right? Say for a texture artist position, if you make something that looks like freaking realistic, then it might be worth sending them another message. And if it's a really big jump from your previous scene, then it might be worth like reaching out to them again. What if it's the most realistic wooden barrel that has ever been done? Well, if you truly think that is the case, then I would reapply. And thank you for the hydrate as well. Appreciate it. Yeah, that's a big thing, right? If your portfolio has something that is worth showing off, something new, something fresh, something that shows that you learned like a new thing and that you're really pushing your skill set, that's when you can reach out to them again. Also, don't make it a habit of like pushing something new, then reapplying 2 weeks later, pushing something new, reapplying 2 weeks later, right? In that case, I would probably hold off for like 2 months or something like that. And don't like reapply like every week, because then, I mean, people are going to get pretty bored of that really quickly. So make sure that it has like a big enough impact. How you define that impact, that is, yeah, unfortunately it's by a case basis. But yeah, a really good question, Edric. I hope that that sort of helped. So let's have a look. I became experiment. I noticed your question too. Let me just have a quick look through the chat and let's see if I missed any questions. If you have a question, feel free to just drop it in the chat and then we'll discuss it. We'll talk about it. Let's have a look. Okay, cool. So I became Experiment. Thanks so much for the question, first of all. I'm thinking of switching from VFX production to game production. From your experience, what is the atmosphere of production like in the games industry? It's great. I mean, I don't really have anything to compare it with, right? Like I've only been in games up until this point. It highly depends on where you land in the gaming industry. Sorry. So I mean that almost goes without saying, right? Obviously, it's gonna depend on where you land, on like what studio you become a part of. But yeah, in general, I like the collaboration. All the studios that I've been a part of have like really tight-knit teams and very open and creative atmospheres. Even though they handled stuff differently, it felt like it's like a nice collaborative creative atmosphere where I'm very fortunate enough to always have been in a position where where I was in a position to be really open and be really outspoken and be really like pushing the creative side of things and like being really open with people about that. And I think from what I've heard from other people too, that is what the gaming industry is sort of like. And what I think it should be, right? It should be a place that is welcoming, is acceptable, like is accepting of every person that comes in and comes in with good ideas. Even if it's a junior, right? There should be no stuff like that where like rank takes on like good, I don't know, where rank starts to matter. Like it doesn't matter. Like a junior can approach me, come up with a good idea, and I'll be like, oh yeah, fuck yeah, let's do that. Sounds like a great idea. And I think that should be applied to like every seniority level, right? Like every layer of the industry. And so far I've been really fortunate to have had that. Obviously, you have to take into account that this is offset by an actual production, right? So there might be some cases where you put something forward and it's a really great idea, but it's like the end deadline or whatever, and there's just no time to implement it. So that can definitely happen too. But yeah, the atmosphere is great. To come back to your question, like I'm loving it in the games industry, because this is the thing, right? Like most people get into the industry to work on big games that have like a big impact, and they want to work on like The Last of Us, and they want to work on like Far Cry, and they want to work on this. But I think once you're in the industry for a couple of years, those things don't matter anymore, or don't matter as much as you thought they would do in the beginning. It's about the people. And I think you're gonna hear that from like a lot of senior people, or like a lot of people that have experience. It's about the people that you have around you. Like, projects come and go, but the people, I mean, people come and go too, don't get me wrong, but like the people is why you're there, right? Make it interesting to work with. They make it bearable in like the tough times when there's like a deadline happening or something like that. The people are going to be there to support you. So yeah, I hope that sort of answers the question. If you got any more questions around that, like any specific questions, feel free to just ask away. What if it's the best, most detailed, realistic wooden barrel? Look, Leon, I think you set yourself like a really high bar now. I want to see the best and most detailed like wooden chair ever. I've recently seen a piece of cardboard that I found like seriously impressive. Yeah, like simple stuff can look really good too. That's the thing, right? Like especially environment artists, because they always want to create like impressive giant worlds, you can get a lot of mileage out of simple stuff too. And usually you can get like way more quality out of the smaller stuff. Just like really push the quality instead of just the scale of it. And I know that this is hypocritical because I always push for scale, so I'm not the best at following my own advice. But yeah. Personally, I agree about enjoying things where I'm in control. Well, there is an offset to that, right, Ben? In the industry, you're almost never in control. You have a say in things, but you're never truly in control. So that is why, from like a personal work thing, that's why I like being in control, because that's like my place, right? That's my space where I can just like do stuff that I want to do. That's also probably the reason why I don't really post that often anymore, because I'm just having fun with stuff that I want to do. And even though I appreciate the feedback, like sometimes, well, if I'm honest, I just don't really care. Because I think I'm at a point, obviously, I'm also in the industry, so I don't have to constantly worry about like constantly improving myself anymore. I can... Yeah, for me, it's more about just like having fun with it at this point. And it took me a long while to get to that point, but it's just like, if I finish it or not, like, meh, I don't really care. Like, I'm having fun. I can just switch it up whenever I want, so. Once people know your name from all the times they had to reject you, that's a bad thing. Yep. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I would definitely say that that's a bad thing. Yeah, I wonder now, because there must be stories where there's like one person that like tried like every 3 months to just get into, I don't know, like say Blizzard or whatever, right? And then after like year 4, after doing this, like his skills like finally got to a point where it's like, okay, let's give you a chance, and got into the industry that way. There must be some, what's it called, like hero stories, where they go from like 0 to hero and be like, yes, I finally made it. So, I mean, I wouldn't advise to go that way, but there's probably some cool stories about that. Was hating working on stuff for the film since I was behind NDA. I enjoy being able to share my work while it's being done. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, I also went through, like, I mean, that's how the blog started, right? That's basically how the whole Beyondextent thing started for me. It's just like, oh, I'll just share my process. And that's literally how it began. No pressure, but I'll try. Yeah, no pressure. Just have to make it like the best thing ever, but yeah, no pressure. Nah, honestly, Leon, like, just have fun with it, man. I mean, try to have fun with it. I know that you're going through like a rough thing right now with sculpting, but always overscope. Yeah, Peter, I mean, that's the story of my life, I think. Even though, like, doing the mentorships now, I always say, like, look, go smaller. Go freaking smaller. Like, this is way too big. And as, like, a mentor, I'm doing the opposite, where I'm like, oh, I'll just make a quick building. And then the building is nearly done, and I'm like, no, let's make it, like, a part of a city. And now I'm currently working on, like, an entire city, so... Yeah, I'm not the best person to look at in that respect, right? But that's fine. That's fine. You're also not in a position where you depend on feedback. It's also different to ask publicly or just have a friend to take a glance. That is true. Yeah, like occasionally I'll do that. I'll talk to like a couple of friends and get their opinion on it. Or like sometimes I'll post it on the server as well, like on the Beyondextent server in the community. But it's been a while. Yeah, I mean for me it's also because yeah, it highly depends on like the amount of time that I can spend on things, right? And it's been pretty busy the last couple of weeks, so I've just been playing around with the lighting a bit, and that's it. I haven't done that much, to be honest. I don't know, receiving an application from the same guy every 2 weeks would be a bit of a red flag. Well, yeah, 2 weeks is... Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Oh, let's have a look, because I skipped a question, right? So, I became experiment. What are you using for working from home, for dailies or notes from supervisors? I'll show you. Wait, can I? Okay, which one can I actually show? No. Oh, this is the personal one. Okay. This is literally what I use. That's it. Just good old post-it notes. Whenever I write something down, I have like a bunch of post-it notes on my desk. And that's it. We have a lot of meetings throughout the week. So we spend a decent amount of time talking. From me giving feedback to other people, like my lead talking to me and giving feedback to me, or like discussing the direction where we want to go into. Most of it I'll just note down on post-it notes. Like I just like it more. Like when I type stuff down in like Notion or whatever tool that I use to take notes, it always gets lost. Like the thing that I like about notes is I have, for example, right now I have 5 of them hanging at the bottom side of my screen, and it's always in view. Like I can't hide it on my screen. Like it's always there. So whenever I'm looking at stuff and I'm wondering, okay, I'm a bit scatterbrained today, what do I need to do? I just literally glance at like one of the post-its and I'm good to go again. That's what I like about it. And there's also like a real powerful thing about just ticking it off, or like crossing it off from like a post-it note. Just buy like a really nice Sharpie and just get going. Because sometimes, yeah, I mean, we can put it in Notion and do like a whole bunch of like checklist stuff, but oftentimes like the most simple things just work the best, especially in my case. Because yeah, I've tried it all. Like I've tried notepads, I've tried like Evernote, I've tried Notion, I've tried Trello, tried Miro, but it's all, yeah, if I need to do stuff, like post-it notes are still the best thing. Pretty old school. During the AMA, I now sculpted the base ornament so I can basically utopia and refine them. Hopefully make it more clean this way, because if I stick to sculpting it, I might learn it. But will also take me too long right now. Yeah, that's the thing that you need to keep in mind, right? Just the balance between the two. Speed and quality. Yeah, it's not a table, but it's like a chair. It's like an old Victorian chair with like some ornaments on like the legs. Cool. Let's have a look-see. Just gonna check the AMA questionnaire really quick. Okay, cool. No more questions coming in. That's cool. Something nice about throwing away a sticky note. Yeah, exactly. Like you just crumple it up. It's like, yes, I achieved like 5 things today. Yeah, because I have like a bunch of post-it notes here. And also the thing that I like about post-it notes is there almost seems like an automatic filtering system that happens, where if it's not important, I lose track of the post-it note. And it's just like, I have post-it notes where I'm like, oh, okay, that's from like 2 weeks ago. I guess it wasn't that important then. It's also pretty cool. Cool. All right. Are there any more questions in the chat? Because I think we can round it off for this one. Yeah, just like a reminder, next week AMA session is gonna be a special one, because we're gonna be talking about the team challenges, the results, and I'm gonna see if I can draw over like the final results and like do like a feedback critique session with some of the other community builders that we have from Beyondextent. So that's gonna be interesting. So it's gonna be like a group feedback and like what to improve in the future session, which is gonna be pretty interesting. So yeah, I'm excited for that. It's gonna be nice. It's also the first time that we're doing it, so it's gonna be awesome. All right, everyone, I'm gonna be popping out then. I'm gonna be doing some spring cleaning, so it's gonna be fun. It's about time. Damn it. Okay, thanks everyone for the great questions, the great discussions, and yeah, I'm looking forward to next week, and I hope to see you all here. So thanks everyone, and have a nice Sunday. See ya.